The planet Rhinar was famous across the galaxy for many things. Its skies were painted in green and silver, its twin suns gave the world an endless glow, and its people were masters of diplomacy. But above all else, Rhinar was known for one dangerous tradition: its feasts. The meals of the Rhinari were not like any other. What was food to them was poison to nearly every other species. A single bite of their dishes could end the life of an unprepared guest. For centuries, this fact had given the Rhinari a unique kind of power. Anyone who dined with them had to eat through protective filters or use complex chemical neutralizers. The message was clear. Their culture was untouchable, their traditions unbroken. To share a meal with them was an honor, but also a silent reminder of their deadly nature. When the Galactic Diplomatic Summit was announced, it was decided that the opening banquet would be held on Rhinar. Leaders and envoys from across the stars came to attend. Great halls were decorated with silver banners. Music played through crystal instruments, and long tables stretched across the chamber. Among the guests was a newcomer to the interstellar stage, Captain Marcus Hale, a human from Earth. He had been chosen as a representative because of his calm nature and ability to adapt to new cultures. Many alien diplomats were curious about him, for humans were still considered mysterious. Their world, often called a death world, was rumored to be filled with dangers that would overwhelm most species. As the guests entered the banquet hall, the Rhinari hosts bowed gracefully. Their tall, thin figures shimmered under the light, and their jeweled garments reflected every color of the spectrum. The head of the council, Erlen Vey, raised a hand. "Welcome, honored guests. Tonight you dine as friends of Rhinar. May this feast strengthen our bonds." Servants carried trays filled with exotic dishes, bowls of glowing soup, plates of thorn-covered fruit, and roasted creatures that shimmered with fire-colored oils were set before the visitors. Most of the diplomats activated their digestive shields, thin energy barriers that filtered the food and removed the toxins before they reached their mouths. Others placed small vials of neutralizer liquid into their drinks to survive the meal. Only Marcus sat quietly, watching the plates being set down before him. The smell was sharp and almost overwhelming, but not unpleasant. His eyes wandered to a steaming bowl of red broth. Flames seemed to flicker on its surface as if the liquid itself were alive. A Rhinari servant noticed his gaze. "Careful, human," the servant said softly. "That is fireleaf broth. Even a drop could end the life of most outsiders. It is sacred to us." Marcus gave a small smile. "It looks spicy." The servant tilted its head in confusion. To the Rhinari, the concept of spicy was unknown. For them, food was measured only in levels of survival or death. There was no middle ground. The other diplomats began eating through their filters, careful not to touch the food directly. They glanced at Marcus, wondering how the human would proceed. Surely, he would use a shield like the others, but Marcus did not. He picked up the spoon beside his bowl, dipped it into the glowing broth, and lifted it to his lips. The hall went silent. Every eye turned to him. Even the music seemed to stop. "Human, wait!" cried Erlen Vey, rising from his seat. "That is forbidden. It will kill you." But Marcus had already taken a sip. He swallowed, leaned back in his chair, and let the taste settle. His face did not twist in pain. He did not cough or collapse. Instead, he raised an eyebrow, reached for another spoonful, and muttered casually, "A little spicy." The chamber erupted in gasps. Several alien diplomats nearly dropped their utensils. A bird-like envoy from the Safari spread its wings in shock. Reptilian ambassador hissed in disbelief. "Impossible," whispered one delegate. "No being can survive fireleaf." Yet Marcus kept eating. He dipped bread into the broth, chewed slowly, and even nodded with approval. "It reminds me of some food back home," he said calmly. "Street vendors used to sell dishes that burned the tongue but left you wanting more." The Rhinari council members exchanged nervous looks. They knew exactly what fireleaf was capable of. In their history, it had been used as a weapon during wars. Its oils could corrode stomach linings, burn through veins, and stop a heart in minutes. Even the strongest neutralizers took hours to counter its effects. But the human was still alive. Not just alive, he seemed to be enjoying it. The guests whispered among themselves. "Humans, what kind of world do they come from? Is it true their planet is filled with poisons and predators? If this is what they call spicy, what do they consider deadly?" Marcus noticed the stares but remained polite. He set his spoon down and gave a small bow to the Rhinari host. Thank you for the meal. Your chef has great skill. Erilyn Vey's voice trembled as he replied. You did not suffer? Marcus shrugged. A bit of heat on the tongue, yes, but nothing too serious. Where I come from, we add peppers to food to make it exciting. Some are strong enough to make your eyes water. This tastes very similar. Silence filled the hall once more. For the Renari, peppers were unknown, but the casual tone of the human made them uneasy. Other dishes were served, each one more dangerous than the last. Plates of venom fruit, slices of stoneflesh root, and roasted ashwing beast were placed on the table. These were meals that no outsider could touch. Marcus did not hesitate. He sampled each one with interest, giving small comments as if he were tasting a variety of snacks. Crispy, he said of the ashwing beast. Sweet and sour, he remarked about the venom fruit. The more he ate, the more unsettled the Renari became. Their proud tradition, the untouchable nature of their cuisine, was being undone before their very eyes by a single human. By the end of the feast, whispers had turned to quiet fear. The other diplomats avoided Marcus's gaze, unsure if they were sitting beside a man or a creature beyond their understanding. And as the final dish was cleared, one thought spread through the hall. If humans could survive the fatal feast of Reinar, then perhaps the stories were true. Perhaps their world had shaped them into something even the galaxy should fear. The banquet hall of Reinar remained heavy with silence even after the servants cleared the first wave of dishes. Captain Marcus Hale sat calmly at the table, his plate nearly empty, while the other guests watched him with a mixture of awe and unease. The fire-colored broth, the venom-coated fruit, the spiny roots, foods that should have ended his life, were now nothing more than a casual meal to him. For the Rhinari, this was not only confusing, it was frightening. Their food had been their silent strength for generations. No outsider could sit at their table without protection. It made the Rhinari unique, even feared. And yet, here was a human, smiling politely, acting as though he had simply eaten a bowl of soup back on his homeworld. The council leader, Erilyn Vey, leaned toward his fellow ministers. His voice was low, but his words carried across the table. We must know the truth. How does this human live after tasting death? One of the ministers, an elder named Joris, shook his head. It is not possible. Perhaps the broth was prepared incorrectly. Perhaps the toxins were weak tonight. No, Erilyn said firmly. The fire leaf was fresh. I saw the chef prepare it myself. It should have burned his body from within. At the far end of the table, an insectoid diplomat from the Threx Coalition tapped its claw nervously. If this is what humans can survive, then perhaps the stories are true. They come from a world filled with storms, beasts, and poisons. They are not like us. Marcus noticed the whispers but pretended not to hear. Instead, he reached for another plate. Stoneflesh root, a delicacy so tough that even the Rhinari boiled it for hours before eating. For other species, its dense fibers would slice through the stomach lining like blades. Marcus broke off a piece, chewed slowly, and gave a nod of approval. Interesting texture, he said casually. Tastes like jerky. The Rhinari counselors stiffened. To compare their lethal root to something as common as dried meat was almost insulting, but more than insult there was fear. The alien guests began murmuring louder. Do you see how he eats it? Whispered the avian envoy, feathers trembling. He does not even sweat, the reptilian ambassador added. Perhaps poison to us is flavor to them, another muttered. Finally, one of the Renari ministers could not stay silent. He stood, his long robe sweeping the floor, and addressed Marcus directly. Human, forgive my boldness, but how do you survive our dishes? Even with filters, other races tremble to sit at our table, yet you eat as if it is nothing. Marcus looked up, surprised by the direct question. He set down his fork and thought carefully. Well, he began slowly, Earth has many kinds of food. Some of it is very strong, very hot. We eat plants that burn the tongue, fruits that make your mouth numb, and spices that feel like fire. We even grow peppers so sharp that one bite can make a man cry. We call it flavor. The entire hall stared at him. To them, flavor was about sweetness, salt, or simple nourishment. The idea that a species would eat painful food by choice was almost impossible to understand. Erilyn Vey narrowed his eyes. You mean, you train your bodies to endure poison? Marcus shrugged. I suppose you could say that. We don't think of it as poison. We think of it as a challenge. Some people compete to eat the hottest food. Others enjoy the taste of danger on their plates. The insectoid diplomat hissed nervously. This is not food culture. This is madness. A nervous laugh rippled across the guests, but the tension in the air did not fade. One of the Rhinari scientists present, Liran Kael, could not hold back her curiosity. She rose from her seat and bowed slightly. Captain Hale, would you permit a scan of your body? For science. We must understand how you do this. Marcus, always calm, gave a polite nod, as long as it does not hurt. She activated a device, a sphere that floated above Marcus's chest. Streams of light passed over him, reading his organs, his bloodstream, his cells. Numbers and graphs flickered across her tablet. Her brow furrowed deeper with every second. At last she whispered, "Incredible." "What do you see?" asked Erlen. Liran's voice shook with disbelief. "The toxins are there. They entered his system. But his body breaks them down faster than the poison can act. His digestive system neutralizes compounds in seconds that should last hours. His blood filters are extraordinary." The entire table gasped. Marcus blinked. "So I'm healthy then?" "Yes," Liran said quietly, "too healthy. What should have destroyed you has become nothing more than heat and flavor." The weight of her words fell heavy on the hall. Every diplomat, every minister, every servant now understood the truth. The human was not merely lucky, nor was the food weak. He had survived because his very biology was a weapon of resilience. The avian envoy leaned back in its chair, feathers shivering. If humans can survive the Rhinari feast, what else can they endure? The reptilian ambassador hissed softly. No wonder their world is called a death world. Whispers spread like fire through the hall. Some were filled with awe, others with fear. Do not provoke them. They smile at poison. They thrive where others die. Marcus tried to break the tension with a small laugh. Honestly, it wasn't that bad. A bit more heat and it would have been perfect. His words, meant as humor, only deepened the unease. To call the deadliest food in the galaxy not that bad was a reminder of how different humans truly were. The feast continued, but no one ate with comfort. The alien guests nibbled cautiously through their filters, their eyes darting toward Marcus. The Rhinari hosts tried to remain proud, but their hands trembled as they lifted their cups. For centuries, their food had been their shield, their weapon, their pride. But now, in one night, that shield was broken. A single human had done it without effort, without fear, without even realizing the storm he had created. By the time the banquet ended, the truth was clear to everyone present. Humanity was not just another newcomer to the galactic stage. They were something else entirely, something the galaxy had never faced before. And in the silence that followed, a single thought echoed through every mind. If this is what humans call a little spicy, then what do they call pain? The banquet of Rhinar ended, but its echo did not. What had begun as a diplomatic dinner became the seed of a new legend. Every guest who left the hall carried the same story on their lips. The human ate the fatal feast and lived. By morning, the tale had spread through the city like wildfire. Merchants whispered it in the markets, scholars debated it in their towers, and soldiers repeated it in hushed tones in their barracks. To the Rhinari, who had always seen their food as untouchable, it was as if a law of nature had been broken. For Captain Marcus Hale, it was almost amusing. He had returned to his quarters after the banquet, unaware of the storm outside. To him, it had simply been a dinner, a strange, exotic meal with surprising flavors. He cleaned his uniform, wrote a report to his commanders, and slept peacefully. But the galaxy was not at peace. Fear and respect. The following day, Marcus was summoned to meet with the Rhinari Council. The chamber was filled not only with the ministers of Rhinar, but also with the ambassadors of many other species who had attended the banquet. Their faces were tight with curiosity and concern. Erlen Vey, the council leader, addressed him directly.
"Captain Hale, do you understand what you have done?"
Marcus frowned. "I ate dinner." A murmur rippled through the chamber. To call it dinner was both simple and terrifying. Liran Kale, the scientist who had scanned him, stepped forward. "Captain, you did more than eat. You have shown the galaxy that what we call poison, your kind calls flavor. You have proven that humans are not only survivors but something beyond understanding." Marcus gave a half smile. "We just have strong stomachs, that's all." But the others did not laugh. To them it was not humor. It was a warning. The insectoid diplomat from the Threx hissed sharply. If one human can endure what kills armies, then what could their species do in war? The reptilian ambassador nodded slowly. Their enemies would have no weapons strong enough. Even the proud Rhinari ministers could not hide their unease. Their food, once a symbol of power, had been stripped of its meaning. If humans could eat it freely, then perhaps they could not be threatened at all. The galactic reaction news spread far beyond Rhinar. Within days, the story reached the galactic networks. Holoscreens across 100 worlds showed the image of a human calmly eating fireleaf broth, his only comment being, "A little spicy." On peaceful worlds, people laughed nervously. On military worlds, generals frowned and adjusted their plans. On criminal worlds, syndicates whispered about never crossing paths with humans. The message was simple. Humanity was different. Humanity was dangerous, not because of weapons or fleets, but because of what they were at their core. Creatures who could endure what others could not. For many, fear grew. For others, respect blossomed. Some even began to admire the humans, believing them to be the ultimate survivors of the galaxy. A new agreement, the Rhinari, both humbled and intrigued, could not ignore the shift. Days after the banquet, they approached Marcus with a proposal. "Captain Hale," Erlen Vey said, bowing slightly, "we wish to open trade with Earth. We wish to study your species, to learn how you have become what you are. In return, we will share our knowledge and resources." Marcus thought carefully. He was no politician, but he knew this moment mattered. What he said here would shape the way humanity was seen for years to come. He nodded. "Earth values friendship. We'll share what we can. But remember, we didn't come here to frighten anyone. We came here to connect." The words calmed the council. For a moment, the tension eased. Humanity was dangerous, yes, but they were not enemies. They could be allies if treated with respect. The growing legend, even so, the legend grew beyond control. In taverns on distant moons, smugglers told the story with wide eyes. The human ate fireleaf broth, just smiled and called it spicy. In military academies, instructors warned their cadets, "Never underestimate humans. If they can eat poison like soup, imagine what they can do in battle." On peaceful farming planets, children pretended to be humans, daring each other to chew bitter leaves and laugh it off. What Marcus thought of as a simple dinner had become a galactic myth. His name spread farther than he ever expected. He was no longer just Captain Hale of Earth. He was the man who ate death and called it spice. Reflection. One evening, as Marcus prepared to return to his ship, Lyran Kyle visited him. The scientist carried her datapad filled with readings from the banquet. "Captain," she said softly, "do you realize what this means for the galaxy?" Marcus smiled tiredly. "That your food isn't so scary after all?" She shook her head. "No. It means your people will never be underestimated again. You have changed the balance without firing a single shot." Marcus leaned back in his chair. He had not sought power, yet somehow he had gained it. Not through force, but through survival. "Maybe that's good," he said at last. "If they fear us, maybe they'll think twice before starting wars. Maybe being known for strength will bring peace." Lyran studied him for a long moment before nodding. "Perhaps. Or perhaps it will only make them more cautious around you. Either way, the galaxy will never forget what you did." The closing scene as his ship prepared to leave Rhinar. Marcus stood at the observation window. The twin suns shone across the planet, casting silver light on the city below. He thought of the banquet, of the shocked faces, of the whispers that followed. He had not planned to make history. He had only eaten a meal. Yet in doing so, he had revealed something greater. That humanity's strength lay not just in weapons or machines, but in their ability to endure, to adapt, and to smile in the face of what others feared. The galaxy would remember, and the story would be told for generations. They said the meal was fatal. The human called it a little spicy. Word count, 1,002 words.